Make sure you're in Google Drive, then go to the Technology folder and make sure you are actually in the Templates folder where we have already made the 5x5 blank Google Sheets, a blank Word document, but nothing else. So now with this highlighted blue, click New, More, and we're going to create a Google drawing. And the way that I navigated to that menu is, first I clicked the New button, hovered over More patiently, and then I didn't move quickly because you might end up jumping out of that sub-menu and sub-choices, so then choose Google Drawing. Now this is going to be thrown away, this first one, so put a Z in front of it, lowercase, capital T-R-A-S-H. The reason that I choose to do that is when it shows up, it'll be pushed to the very end alphabetically. And if I put the word trash in it, and I end up with a bunch of files, I'll know that this is of less importance, and when I'm ready to, I can just throw it away. So I clicked on that tab to show it, and now click back here. Now the reason this is going to be a trash folder is I want you to play around down here and see how you can resize things, and just observe what happens. I want you to mess around with these different tools. I clicked on this line. There's a downward triangle that gives you multiple choices, like something like polyline. Poly meaning many, line meaning line, and that can close in a shape. There's also just curves. Lets you close in a shape there as well. And then there's scribble. Command Z can undo any of those steps. And so I want you to explore all of these different options, see what happens when you choose certain shapes. Notice that a lot more popped up there. I'm in the tool, I'm in the item. When I click out of it, it goes away. So for the next 5 minutes or so, just play around, see if you can type in some text, do that sort of thing. So go ahead and pause that video, maybe set a 5-minute timer. And go from there. Your teacher can do this for you if you need help. Okay, now resume the video, come back to this after you're done. If you still have that window open, close it, but now let's trash this file. An easy way to trash it is to click on it once, and then just click Remove, which is the trash icon. Let's empty the trash out just to stay clean. You have to scroll down to find your trash, and then I can click on the downward triangle and choose Empty Trash. You should always read through warnings. All files and folders in your trash are about to be permanently deleted. You can't undo this. So if you have things in here you want to keep, you're going to want to restore those first. Okay, I'm still sitting in the trash, but it's showing that it's empty, so I'm going to jump back to Templates, and then now we are going to create a new Google Drawing, and this is the one we are going to keep. We are going to rename this to Top Down Web. And I'm going to warn you, this will probably take you a little while to do. We are going to use generic wording. Anything that's generic means it can be used for most anything. So if I think of the organization of a top-down web, the very first thing is often a box. So I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. Under the shapes, here's the rectangle. It's right there. And I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to make it somewhat wide. Now double click in here. By default, the text is to the left. Let's center that. Again, I double clicked, which brings up a flashing cursor, which lets me type right in the center of that shape. Now I've clicked the align and I've centered it and I'm good to go. You could also change to top, middle, and bottom alignment, but I do want this to be centered in the middle. Always, 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 we have to determine the topic first. So I press Command B to make this bold, capital T-O-P-I-C. Jump back, fix this if you need to. I'm going to click out of the shape and now I'm going to relocate it. You'll notice that all my text features and color options went away because I'm no longer inside of this shape. When I move to this checkered area, I just see the cursor's arrow. When I move to the topic, I see that my cursor goes between the move icon and then a selecting text looking cursor. If I click in there and I'm trying to move it and nothing is working the way I want it to, click out of your item and start over. I want to move this to the center. And as I move this to the center, you'll see me get red lines. This red line is perfectly vertical and it tells me that I have aligned this object perfectly in the center of my shape. In my overall Google Drawing window. If you're not caught up, pause the video and make sure it looks like this. Instead of recreating each shape, I'm going to do a click here and I'm going to duplicate my object. Now notice that the word duplicate begins with D, so I selected the object and then I hit Command D to duplicate that. And I'm going to push this over to the side and maybe I'll shrink it down a little bit too. Topics come down to lower choices, so while I've clicked inside of this, I'm going to change this to Main Idea 1. But most often we want this shape to differentiate itself from the next shape down, so I'm going to click here and I'm going to change the look of my shape. I've brought up these other features by doing a control click. So if I go to my item, I might click it once. Then once it's selected, I do a control click. So I hold the control button down, then press the click on the trackpad, and I'm going to choose Change Shape. When I move here, more options come up, and then I want this to be a rounded rectangle. This looks different from the rectangle because it's rounded. If you want, you can play around with the amount of rounding, but I discourage that because I think it starts to look a little bit silly and not professional. There's one main idea. Well, the main idea comes down to a supporting detail. Let's duplicate this again, and let's move it directly below. Now mine's a little bit off, so to fix it, I can just do a calm click and drag, but if you're way over, sometimes that's even more helpful because it makes it easier to find the guiding line and then bring that below. This is your call. Sometimes when we bullet it, it comes over way far and then it's a pain to deal with. So you might want to not bother bulleting. So optionally, you may bullet this or not. But if you do bullet it, let's work on bringing this margin further over. I made a mistake, so I'm choosing undo. I'm going to drag the whole thing all the way back just slightly. In here, it looks like we don't really have enough room for supporting detail. Capital S-U-P-P-O-R-T-I-N-G. Make sure that you are adhering to capital letter conventions. So under the main idea, I have supporting detail 1. So I'm going to drag this part over. If you accidentally move the whole deal, be careful. And see if we can include all of that supporting detail 1. And then I'll do the same thing up here so they match in width. Now I don't want to have to retype supporting detail again and again and again. So once I'm in there, if I want to choose all of the text, I can do Command A to choose everything. Command C will copy it. In the far right corner of the keyboard, I have my arrow keys, and I'm pressing to the right, or I can click at the end to make sure I'm way over there. Hit return, paste it. Paste it. Sometimes you get some messed up stuff, so you just delete back to the end of the one before, delete back to the end of the one before, and so on. Now if yours doesn't look exactly like this, get some coaching for it, and let's shrink the font down to 12 too. I think this will look cleaner if the text is pushed up to the top. So I'm going to click on my align once I have that text selected, and I'm going to use the choice of having this up top. Let's go through and add a couple of more changes, supporting detail 1, 2, 3, and that's probably enough. Let's connect these. I know that the main idea feeds into the supporting details, so I will connect them right there. But perhaps we won't have just one main idea. So I'm going to do a click and drag, and I only want to grab these two rounded rectangles. I don't want to grab the topic as well. If I just grab the rounded rectangles, I'll duplicate this, and I will move it so that it's at the same height and over slightly. I'll duplicate my second, repeating the process for a total of 5 times. I think that 5 main ideas probably is pretty common, so get caught up to where I'm at, and then once you're there, go through and make these changes. Pause the video if yours doesn't look like mine, revisiting to get to where I'm at. Okay, so now we have a little bit of an issue. The Google Drawing window no longer holds my previous picture. So I'm going to hover here, and I'm going to resize my Google Drawing. Now I have another problem. My topic isn't centered, so I can choose this item, move it until I'm right at the center of my whole project. And this looks pretty darn clean. Now notice that I'm moving these as I go, so that's a little bit of guidance that as you work on final projects, when you're doing the drafting process, don't get crazy with formatting. If you get crazy with formatting, it's going to be a problem because you'll end up burning a lot of time. Like you might not know what the final product looks like. That might be unclear, so feel free to ask a teacher for more clarification. Instead of a line, let's choose the elbow connector. The elbow connector is nice, just like the line, because if I hover over my item, I get these 1, 2, 3, 4 snap points. I want to snap the bottom of the topic to the top of the first main idea. Click again, and repeat the process for everything else. These movements are clicking first, holding the click, and then connecting with the fifth. The way that this is, I can't see this looking much more clean. I think this looks pretty darn professional. So this says top-down web, but we know that this is going to be a blank template. So let's add a space at the end of web, open up a bracket, capital B-L-A-N-K, close the bracket, and click out of it. If you're finished, close the window, and notice that under the templates folder, you now have a top-down web blank. And the cool thing is, if this is existing already, maybe you want to just do a control click and make a copy where it ends up copy of top-down web, and you'd rename it, and you'd be like history article on the Civil War. Or maybe it's just the Civil War. I'd move that to history because that's not where it belongs. And then once I work on it inside of history, I can go in and populate all of these different areas appropriately. And if you didn't need 5 total, maybe you just needed 4, you could delete parts, either at the end or the beginning or the middle, and then just recenter your objects. And doing so is a pretty snazzy way of taking care of future projects. Go ahead and play around with your template. Make sure you do create an extra copy. And if this won't be used for anything, just like I showed earlier, put Z trash there so you know to throw it away. And if you needed more than 4 or 5, you could duplicate multiple chunks and fix it from there.